Thank you very much. On behalf of the Mexican government, I thank our kind host, Finland, and the organizers. It's been very interesting to participate in this important event and understand this forum approach to involve the private sector in business opportunities and risks connected with biodiversity conservation and loss. I do feel the lack of Latin America here and the Caribbean too. So I will let me take you at least to, in a short virtual road trip to Mexico, biodiversity and natural capital. Mexico is extremely diverse and complex in form, in location, in topography, in ecosystems, in biological diversity, in history and cultural heritage. Only China has more different ecosystems than Mexico, and that's because there is no Mexican tundra. 70% of our country has forestry potential. That is almost 142 million hectares, like 4 times Finland. And 32 million hectares are temperate conifer and oak forest, while only 15.7 hectares are devoted to agriculture. Our tropical rainforests are biological and genetic reservoirs. They cover only 0.2% of our territory, yet 20% of our species are found there, including 19% of the flora species. There are more than 96 million hectares of deserts, subhumid and dry ecosystems, including unique ecosystems as the Chihuahua and the Sonora deserts. We have more than 764,000 hectares of mangroves, 27 marine ecoregions, and 11,122 kilometers of coastlines, more than Spain, as Brazil, and more than Argentina. We have the Sea of Cortez, that was named by Jacques Cousteau the aquarium of the world. It's one of the 5 more productive marine ecosystems in the world, and with more biodiversity. 740 endemic species, and is the habitat of the most endangered cetacean species, La vaquita marina. Its 922 islands and protected areas have been declared the UNESCO World Heritage Site. We have the beginning of the Mesoamerican Reef, the second largest in the planet, that runs along Mexico, just in front from Cancun, through Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. The northern Pacific, West Pacific population of great whales are born in Mexico. They are Mexican whales. And the last season, 1,500 whales arrived, and they gave birth to 1,130 calves. Mexico is one of the 5 countries with more biological diversity. Occupying just 1% of the surface of the planet, we are responsible at least 10% of the biological diversity in the world. And Mexico is, though, very pleased with the inclusion of the biodiversity as a cross-cutting component of the Sustainable Development Goals. We are #1 country in reptiles, second in mammals, 4th in amphibians. We have over 1,000 species of birds, 125 of them endemic. We are the winter hosts of the monarch butterfly, and we have 669 cacti species, 518 of them are endemic. There is no other country with more pine species than Mexico, and we are center of origin and genetic diversity of over 100 crops. Of course, maize, of course, squash, pumpkin, vanilla, tomato, and other species. We have over almost 26 million hectares of natural protected areas, federal natural protected areas. That's roughly the size of England. There are opportunities for business in these natural protected areas in terms of tourists. We have a visitation of, as for August this year, 21.2 million tourists, international tourists, has visited Mexico, spending more than $12 billion. So sustainable tourism is in natural protected areas is an ongoing conservation strategy. Different ecosystems, that's me swimming with the whale wart in the upper right corner. We have incredible sites that haven't been exploited for tourists, like the Barrancas de Cobre, that is much more deeper and much more larger than the Grand Canyon. We have natural world history, world heritage sites in natural protected areas, 5 of them, and one, Calakmul, is the 6th one, and is a mixture of cultural and natural World Heritage Site. And then we have Cancun and the Riviera Maya, that in last year was visited by 7 million international tourists. But Mexico is also the 5th world economy. We are over 125 million people. 78% of us live in urban environments. We are the #1 exporters of and producers of avocado. We are the 3rd of organic honey. We are 1st in broccoli. But we have a very vibrant industry, in car industry, even aviation and space industry, and many global companies. We have a strong commitment with the global environment agenda. The Climate Change Conference is upon us. As you may know, Mexico was the first emergent economy to put out there the INDCs, their commitments to cut down emissions, and we are committed to cut down emissions in 25% by 2030. That is a total of 281 million tons of greenhouse emissions, and still grow. For the industry, for the private sector, they have the commitment to tackle 42 million tons. And in the waste sector, 13.3 tons. These commitments are only going to be achieved if consumption and production patterns change towards sustainability patterns. Christina beat me in talking about the 10YFP program. I mention it because Mexico is co-chair of this program in the UN initiative that brings together different approaches where the private sector can participate. Maybe I can just talk a little about the tourism program. There was a question before. There are now three flag projects, one in Vietnam, one in South Africa related to natural protected areas, in tourism in natural protected areas, and one is food waste in hotels in the European Union. If you need more information, I'm more than happy to give them to you. But I bring it up also because the first global meeting was held in May, and the main conclusion was that sustainable development a sustainable production and consumption is going to happen only if the private sector gets involved. So, by this kind of actions is the goals for climate change mitigation and adaptation, the quality jobs, the livelihood and well-being increment, poverty eradication, and of course biodiversity conservation are going to be met. And so this initiative is consistent with the Aichi target number 4 to be complied by 2020 at the latest. We, the countries of the world, have committed to achieve this and all the Aichi target just 5 years from now. The urgency to move from proposal to actions has been clearly stated in too many different forums from some years now. Currently, many organizations, business, financial institutions, and countries are making commitments and action in emission mitigation. Similar efforts are needed to ensure that the use of natural resources is within sustainable limits. That's why it's very reassuring to see how the private sector, enterprises of all sizes, from productive and service sectors, are embracing sustainability as a business sector strategy. This is one idea. Let us enlarge the scope of biodiversity conservation and talk about waste. Waste pollution is addressed in many forums, but its toll on biodiversity in terms of ecosystem degradation is rarely mentioned, at least in numbers. Extrapolating official data from 2013, we estimate that in Mexico the cost of soil degradation due to waste pollution is reaching $3.8 billion this year. That's 0.4% of our national GDP. We need to get companies of all sizes implement initiatives to improve their sustainability performance. Integrate waste management is a good example. Mexico is now the world leader in PET recycling, bottle per bottle, recycling more than 60% of PET containers after use. This is over Brazil, 42%, the United States, 31%, and the average in the European Union, that is 25%. For each ton of recycled PET, 3.3 million tons of carbon dioxide are not emitted, 40.1 million of oil barrels are saved, and 3.5 million cubic meters of space in landfills is not used. Talking about forest, being Mexico a forested country, almost 5 million tons of paper is recycled each year and is used for 80% of the needed fibers for paper production. This is working in an inland solution, an idea that was talked about before. This is sustainable production and consumption. This is the private sector in action. This is happening, and this is influencing biodiversity conservation. We have all examples of direct involvement with biodiversity in micro, small, and medium enterprises. We have the mandate from the ministries of the environment of the Latin America and the Caribbean region to work with small and medium enterprises. The Yucatan Peninsula, for example, we are the third world producers of organic honey, and 70,000 beekeepers of small indigenous community depend on this market. Having said all that, let us talk about the COP13. Policy-making decisions are going to take place there. So, this is the general agenda and the scope. Strangely, the high-level segment will take place before the negotiation periods from the 2 to the 4th of December. The COP will officially be opened by the high-level segment on the 4th. From the 4th to the 17th of December, we have the COP MOP 8 of the Cartagena Protocol, the COP 2 of the Nagoya protocol, and then we have the parallel events. Summit for citizens of national governments, forums for business, forums from NGOs, and indigenous communities. We are expecting at least 10,000 participants, and we are looking for biodiversity mainstreaming for well-being. That is, we have first the political agenda and mandates, then the negotiations, and then the voluntary approaches. As a business and biodiversity, we would like to work on a strategy to involve the business sector, including small and medium enterprises, in implementation of concrete actions to reduce, avoid, and mitigate negative impacts on biodiversity and promote sustainable consumption and production practices. Let us widen the scope far beyond philanthropy to include competitiveness, corporate responsibility, and environmental performance through process efficiency, continuous improvement and productivity as related with life cycle approaches, product and process innovation, efficient use of resources, and recover materials from waste, involvement of small and medium enterprises and supplier chain in sustainable production and consumption, dignified quality jobs, and gender equality to reinforce human capital, as well as promotion and capacity building on sustainable consumption further increases community outreach and corporate social responsibility. This will integrate biodiversity conservation in production processes and services like tourism. So avoiding, reducing, and restoring negative impacts on biodiversity can be regarded not only as a global commitment, but also as a competitiveness strategy. Thank you in advance for your concrete ideas and proposals on this theme and other themes that should be included in a business and biodiversity forum for the COP13 agenda. Thank you very much. Kitos Palion.